Yeah, so we've kind of talked a bit about the cloud storage as well, but basically you have access to whatever you have stored in the cloud at all times, whether it's your either iCloud or whether it's OneDrive or Dropbox. Everything is what we call synced together, which means that all devices have the same copy of your files. So the file is the same version regardless of what you accessed it on. The cool thing is, again, it's easy enough for you to share and transfer files. You can save whatever you want on there, programs, photos. You Whereas some file extensions you can't actually send via email. You don't have to worry about the backup, and again, it saves space in your hard drive. Everything gets synchronized afterwards. So the problem is, you might have to pay if you want more space. Like I know Dropbox, the size has a size limit, so if you want more space, you need to pay. Um, and if you let someone else have access to a folder, they might accidentally delete it as well if you share it. Now we get to the other. Now we get to sharing files. There's a few ways you can share files. The first one is emailing it to someone. Now the problem with email, um, which we'll get to the disadvantages later, I guess, but the problem with email is that again you can run into size limits. So if you email people, it's great because it's basically free. It's an inexpensive way to transfer files. It's very fast, so when you click send, the person will get it fairly quickly. The problem is though, you cannot send large files, so you are limited to a small number of megabytes to send. You can't send 5 gigabytes via email. And you also, some email systems don't let you send zip files or .exe files because they are seen as, so they could be suspicious content. Plus, your emails are not always secure. People can get access to them, as we're going to see in module 2.2. Plus, you cannot. There's a certain. You might be limited as to how many people you can send to. So some email services will prevent you from sending beyond a certain number, like 10 emails. Others, you can send thousands at a time. But the problem is when you are sending files to a lot of people, it gets very hard to add everyone's email addresses in. So the better way of sending large files is something called FTP, File Transfer Protocol, which is a protocol for breaking up a big file into an easy and manageable size for sending to a remote computer. So people often will send. You can send large files to an internet server or to a file server using this, and you have to make a direct connection to that other server. But most people are using, say, OneDrive or cloud storage for these big files anyway, because as you will see, it gets a bit hard to it's actually fairly challenging to use FTP. You need to have a bit of technical know-how. Okay, so back to the grid computing. So this is also something you can do online. Grid computing is when you share a whole bunch of computing power. You basically connect a whole bunch of computers that are separate from each other, but they act as one, and then they will do tasks as if they were one computer. So there are a few examples of this. I know, like now for the COVID-19, there's some programs where you can download, and then your computer can contribute to doing some analysis of the DNA of these viruses or the RNA of the viruses, and then that would be a problem for your computer. But if you combine your computer and millions of other people's computers at home, then the task can be done a lot easier. So that is grid computing. It's when you join many smaller, less powerful computers, and they can do tasks as if they were one big supercomputer. So people also do this for they used to do it for scanning for stars or processing data from satellites. So we kind of talked a bit about this as well. You can, as you're going to see, some of these are even illegal. Like some people will basically put malware on your computer to make your computer part of a botnet, which is basically stealing your resources without you knowing them. But there are many legit grid computing tasks that you can join. And yeah, the SETI at home was when you search for extraterrestrial intelligence or radioactive at home, and there's other like protein folding or scientific applications you can use. The cool thing is you can it's very cheap to do because you don't need to buy a supercomputer. You just use everyone's desktop computers at home, and it solves problems that would normally use a monster supercomputer. Your computer's probably on it anyway, so it's already using up power, so you can make it actually do something for you. The problem is that you are limited by the speed of the network between these, so you're limited by internet speed, and some of the computers might be kind of bogged down by everyone else, or some of the computers in the network might be infected by malware, as we're going to see as well. Okay, so we're getting down the line here. These are examples of, say, government services you can now use on the internet, and you can do a whole bunch. Some of you might even have you probably booked your driver's license or learner's license online, and these are just examples of them. So renewing a TV license, getting your things like getting your matric results, getting forms to fill in for your car license, or doing your tax, or getting your applying for, say, a new school, getting your telephone account. Those are all government services that you can do online. Things like, well, the advantage, or the example is, say, e-filing. So the nice thing is that the government can now connect with its with citizens and give them more information. Plus, you don't have to go into a government department to get that service. You can do it online. You don't have to travel or wait in a queue. You can find out very quickly what the outcome was, and you can get information that's really up to date, because it was up to date online. You save money in terms of printing. They save money in terms of printing, and you don't have to. They don't have to physically see you. Even sometimes have physical offices, and plus most of those you can get on your smartphone, which is cool. You don't even need a desktop. Plus you don't have to print, so that means it is more environmentally sustainable. The problem is that we deal with something called the digital divide. Now, the digital divide is basically the gap between people who have access to the internet and those who don't. So between those, there's a digital divide. If you have access to the internet, that good for you. But if you don't, it becomes really hard for you to get access to those services. And also the problem with government services, sometimes they are extremely expensive, like they are tens of millions of rands to actually develop because they're very complex and they need big requirements. There are concerns as to, is the information stored on there safe? How secure is it? Or how will my information be used? If the service is down, you might feel there's nothing you can do. It's harder to deal with the technology than an actual person, and you might sometimes blame the computers for some issue that might have been caused by a person. And the problem with the digital divide as well leads to this last point, which is that you need to have two systems. So you need to have a system for everyone who can use the internet, but you need to maintain another system, a manual system, for those who don't have access to the internet, who have to come in and actually write a handwritten form. Okay, so that brings us to the end of that. You see that there's those two written activities. You'd be welcome to go through those activities in module 2.1. I'm just going to show you quickly what I think in the next video I'll show you this. But anyway, I'll see you guys next time.